Now, what I want to do now is introduce you to the wonderful Nick Croser. He is an expert on psychosocial safety and has implemented it at Sonder and provides a wealth of experience and knowledge to our clients. So he will introduce some of those psychosocial hazards and the way that we work with you to support that.
Thanks very much, Taryn, and good afternoon, everyone. For those on the Eastern Seaboard, Nick Croser is my name, Head of Governance and Risk at Sonder. As it pertains to psychosocial risk, those that have been on the journey know that the deeper you go, the more you discover how complex this landscape is becoming. We recently did our own end-to-end assessment of how our business approaches it, and whilst we felt we were in a good shape, we acknowledged that we didn't understand how complex it was. It takes you on a journey, ideally, of most commonly of uncertainty first, but reinforces that notion that there is no silver bullet and no one-stop shop to fixing or to mitigating psychosocial hazards. During the process, it's likely that organisations will gravitate towards their natural habitat, that being you become more effective in managing hazards for which are closely associated to your core business. For manufacturing business, for example, they'll likely have significant levels of training and compliance and PPE for their workers, but might not have spent as much time on other hazards such as low job control or bullying and harassment. And for white collar workers, they're more likely to have a suite of policies that their employees can read, but what goes beyond the policy? How do you actually tangibly impact your business and your employees? So Sonder's space, we have healthcare operations centres in Sydney, Auckland and London. So our staff are dealing with these traumatic events daily. So we're quite well versed in how we support our own internal staff when they get exposed to traumatic events. But that's a key pain point we're seeing in the market at the moment. Businesses just don't know what to do in the event when a critical incident happens or a traumatic event happens to an individual or to a collective of individuals. The takeaway when we did our own end-to-end assessment was that you can no longer have one or two solutions to each hazard. What we're seeing now is businesses and organizations need a holistic suite of tools. That being, as leaders or managers or executives, you need to be able to draw upon and pull levers depending on each unique case, the individual and the environment. No longer just a policy or a training compliance exercise. Everyone would have previously been a tick in the box exercise in their organization, and that is no longer sort of cutting the mustard. So you need these 6, 7 or 8 tools to draw upon, whether it's interactive digital solutions or in-house training or leadership training. So the space that Sonder primarily plays in, we're assisting organizations to mitigate and manage some of these hazards that are occurring. We'll sort of go in shortly to some workplace scenarios to contextualize the pain points we're seeing in the market and how emerging tech solutions such as Sonder are tackling that problem. But I think it's a large, complex landscape, and importantly, it's about communicating. There really is a shared responsibility to manage psychosocial risk management across an organisation. It's not just done at the sort of executive and the board level. It's really done throughout the leadership, through the business, providing resources and support to all levels all leaders at all different levels. It's obvious, we understand it's incredibly difficult, especially for those that don't play in this space very often. And it's complex to unpack and make informed assessments if you don't have the right tools in place. I think that probably covers a bit of an overview of the journey we've been on and what we're seeing in the market. I'll hand over back to Taryn now. She might be able to cover off some specific workplace scenarios. We can discuss through that, and please drop any Q&A in the Q&A section at the bottom as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Nick. Absolutely. Look, and psychosocial risk management is more than just providing benefits to your employees. It's really about taking that preventative approach to what you've isolated as potential risk in your organization. So what we're going to do now is go through kind of 3 workforce scenarios of examples of hazards. Obviously, your organization might vary to these and have different hazards. I see that we've got people here from all different types of organizations. So throw questions out there if there's something that you think would particularly apply to your sector. So if you wouldn't mind jumping through, Travis, the first scenario I wanted to address was potential traumatic events. So really this is about taking a look at a scenario that we hear a lot from organizations similar to those in the meeting today. Basically, where their management teams are under increasing pressure to deal with kind of employee challenges, from individual health and well-being situations among team members to those really critical events. There might be a death in the team, or a family member has passed, or a critical injury. So obviously those situations can cause undue stress. And often when you've got a really lean management team, as I'm sure we all do, they can tend to overextend an area beyond their expertise. And their employees aren't getting that qualified care to address the challenges in a really practical way. So really, when those managers go above and beyond too often, it's causing tension, stress, and undue pressure, essentially. And it can really compromise the operational outcomes for the company at large as well. So this is really how we would alleviate that pressure to improve the effectiveness for the wider management team. So jumping into the next slide, Travis, the key point here is that one of the most proactive and preventative ways that we can help managers and leaders in any business is through easy and convenient access to educational material. It sounds like a no-brainer, but when you make it easily accessible and habitual, it's more likely to be consumed. So really, we want to be meeting people around health, well-being, and safety issues in their organization. And really, it's tips and tactics on how to initiate challenging conversations around mental health and practical advice to help their team in those distressing situations. But if they have any additional concerns about the health and safety of a team member, Travis, if you just jump 2 slides ahead, they might have not shown up to a shift, for example, and you can't get a hold of them, or there's been a big change in their demeanor, the way that they're communicating with their colleagues. What we can do is a welfare check on them. So we can have one of our emergency responders in any location be sent out to them to check on their well-being. Depending on the severity and the circumstances of the concern, that might range from a phone-in or in-app checks to emergency services and in-person checks on their well-being. If you jump to the next slide though, Travis, I think the key thing here is that incidents are inevitable and they can be random. So it's how you respond as a business that makes the difference. If you have a critical incident in your organization, we have the ability to respond effectively to support your management teams on the ground to ensure the immediate safety of your teams. So how this works is the manager can report the incident via the app, either with a live chat or a phone call, or via the help alert with the red button, and our team can then respond accordingly. If you jump to the next slide, Travis, you'll see that it triggers a series of steps that our safety team will then go through in coordination with your management team. So we get to understand your desired responses. If you just jump forward, Travis, sorry, perfect. So that's an example of our in-person responder turning up to the site and supported by our Sonder support centre in Sydney, Auckland or London. So basically, jumping to the next slide, Travis, really we're trying to make managing more manageable, essentially, to put it into like a pithy catchphrase. But I quite like the concept that you will then get a critical incident report after the fact to take you through exactly what happened, what actions you took as an organisation supported by Sonder, and then any mitigating risk factors as well. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Taryn. I think on the critical incident report, that's where we see organisations having a huge benefit in understanding any emerging trends. So we'll provide that acute support to an individual or multiple employees on site as required post a critical incident, and obviously during. A medical director can speak at length about when people are likely to present, but it's not going to be in 6 or 12 hours. It could be five weeks down the track. So it's that longitudinal support. But the critical incident report, which is delivered back to an organisation within 24 hours of the initial support, provides that really clear projection of what's actually occurring in the workplace. And as Taryn said, any emerging trends or risks that we feel that the organisation could look into more closely, because you obviously know your employees better. So That's the benefit of having that in-person response. That in-person response can really gauge what's actually occurring, speak to people on the ground, and then provide that feedback back to our operations centre. That's it.
Definitely. Travis, if you just jump to the next slide now, a second psychosocial hazard that we wanted to talk to that we feel would probably be relevant to this audience is around work travel and events and the potential vulnerable situations that you or your staff might be in. So it's very common, obviously, now for staff to be back traveling again and attending client events or meetings on-site or off-site where they're by themselves or kind of outside of a traditional work setting. And obviously there's some very real concerns and vulnerabilities around the safety, but also the mental health of your people in these kind of different environments. You know, there's an example there of having drinks out on the terrace in London or sitting at an airport by yourself for hours on end. Sonder can act as the go-to support platform for your people in those situations. So not only to respond quickly and reduce that harm in the distressing situation, but really to prevent them from happening in the first place. If you jump to the next slide, Travis, you'll see that basically from the moment that your people leave the office or they're going to their house or they're going to a meeting, basically they can proactively engage with our self-managed safety tools. So one of them is called Track My Journey, which is what you're looking at here. And they simply enter their destination. So that could be, you know, home, or it could be my client's office and their mode of transport. And then they hit go, you know, as they get into the Uber or their car or whatever it might be. So jumping to the next slide, then that's supported by our support center in the background. So our safety team will confidently and they can basically discreetly monitor that progress. But if you veer off that path, if you take too long, then basically we start to prompt the member to check in that they are safe. And that gradually escalates according to a pathway that we've defined with you in the past. So if you jump to the next slide, Travis, you'll see basically the majority of, you know, journeys, as you are probably aware, are completed safely and the employee themselves is completely fine. So, for example, a large banking customer of ours in Australia, Commonwealth Bank, have over 50,000 employees and a significant mobile workforce. So they've mandated Sonder and the use of Track My Journey feature for their mobile mortgage broker team to ensure the safety of their team. It's been around 2 years that they've been doing that now. So basically, you know, as they leave, you know, the location and when they arrive at the location, they check in that they're safe. I think the great thing about this for the individual employee, or what we would call our member, is that they do feel safe and secure in their workplace. But from a management perspective, they're also reducing that risk sitting on them of constantly thinking, where are my employees? Are they safe? Have they arrived? And that manual check-in process. So if you jump to the next slide, Travis, you'll see we also have what's called a check on me tool. Now, this can work in 2 different ways. You can set a time for us to check in on you, or you can say, look, check on me in 2 hours. This can work in a professional setting. So, for example, you have a meeting one-on-one at a different site location, or in a personal setting, you could be going on a Tinder date for the first time and getting someone to check in on you at 9 p.m. halfway through your date is a really helpful thing to do. If you jump 2 slides, I really wanted to show you this immediate help button, this red button. And this has been a really great initiative for organizations that potentially have contact with the general public or clients coming in, potential aggressive customers, break-ins, that type of thing. This can be a really great setting, basically to keep it on your desk. You can press it at any time. I mean, if you're in a childcare sector, for example, you might be doing parent-teacher nights or having people walk into your childcare centre. It's great to be able to press that and get that immediate support. So if you jump down 2 slides again, Travis, I'm just trying to get through this because I'm mindful of time, but then you would see an emergency responder coming out to you. You would see who they are, and they will always have the Sonder logo on them. The face will match the picture, and you can ensure that your team are safe in that environment. If you wanted to jump to the next slide, Nick, did you have anything you wanted to add around those vulnerable situations?
Thanks, Taryn. I think it's what we see primarily with our customers is that this is a really good way of building trust. So employees will download the app on their phone and may initially start testing out some of these apps, and that builds the trust along with the proactive communications that prior to hitting that crisis point or that point in which they need to seek actual help, they're feeling a lot more comfortable using this service in the background with no human interaction at all. And they've obviously got that angel in the pocket as required, where they can morph into sort of phone or chat for the next stage of help.
I love that. Angel in their pocket. That's really nice. I'm going to steal that